Good day, everyone. Today we will discuss the research methodology measure of central tendency. What is a statistic? It's a branch of science that deal with the collection, organization, and analysis of data, and drawing inference term of sample to the whole population. What is a statistical treatment? The term is statistical treatment is a catch of term which means to apply any statistical method to your data. What is mean? Mean is a data set is the sum of all value divided by the total number of value. Example is the number 1, 2, 3, 6, 8. To get the mean, add all the value, then divided by the number of the value, which is 5. So, add, add, add the value that 1, 2, 3, 6, 8. The answer is 20. Then divided by 5. The answer is 4. Next, what is the median? Median is a descriptive statistic that researchers commonly use to characterize the data from their studies. The example is the number 13, 14, 16, 18. So, the number 14 is in the middle of all number. That's why our median is 14. What is mode? Mode is the value that occurs most often. If no number in the list, if no number in the list is repeated, then there no mode to the list. Example is 13, 13, 13, 13, 13, 14, 14, 16, 18, 21. So our mode is 13 because this is occurs most often number.
Second, standard deviation is a measure of the dispersion of a set of data from its means. Third, F-test and T-test. P-value is probability of getting result as extreme as observed value under null hypothesis for practical purposes. Reject a null hypothesis if the p-value is less than alpha. Next.
Good day, everyone. Today, we'll be talking about the F-test and the T-test. First of all, let's go to the T-test. Let's define what is T-test. T-test checks if two means are reliably different from each other. But why do we need to test? Can't we just compare the two means? Okay, let's say we have two coins. And we are gonna use the coins. We're gonna flip it and see how many times the coins will flip into heads. The first coin, let's say, flip 72 times. The second coin flip to the heads 50 times. There is no statistical difference. There are just chances. So the t-test uses inferential statistics. The tests allow us to make inference about the population beyond our data. The statistic follows a distribution under null hypothesis. The test can be used to find if the mean of a population is different from a known mean. The test can be used to find out if the means of two samples are significantly different. The questions that need to be answered before using the t-test are: is it a single population or multiple populations? Are the sample sizes equal? Are the variance equal and it is paired or unpaired test? Now let's go to the F-test. F-test is a statistical tool that we need to validate our data, added to the standard deviation and percent RST. The purpose of the F-test is to tell us if the standard deviation of the two sets of data are statistically different from each other. We can also compare two different methods from each other. The test statistics has an F distribution under null hypothesis. F-test can be used to find out if the means of multiple populations having the same standard deviation differ significantly from each other. The test can also be used as a two-tailed test or one-tailed test. F-tests for ANOVA or analysis of variance for two variables is equivalent to performing the t-test. Also, the relation is given f equals t squared. Let's move on to the next topic. We have the analysis of variance, or ANOVA. ANOVA is used to analyze the difference among means. This is a statistical technique that assesses potential differences in a scale level. Dependent variable by nominal level variable having two or more categories.
One-way ANOVA. Ginagamit po ang method na ito to determine if the mean of groups are different. Hindi po siya nakabase sa number of categories kundi sa independent variables. One-way ANOVA is example as a group researcher, you want to test the effect of 3 different mixtures on crop yield. Two-way ANOVA. If sa one-way ANOVA dinedetermine, dito naman po is ine-estimate niya yung mean of quantitative variable that changes according to the levels of two categorical variables. N-way multivariate ANOVA. It is also extends the capabilities of analysis of variance by assessing multiple dependent variables simultaneously. For example, if you have 3 different teachings method and you want to evaluate the average scores of these groups, you can use ANOVA. However, ANOVA does have a drawback. Chi-square. Chi-square is a statistical test used to examine the differences between categorical variables from a random sample in order to judge goodness of fit between expected and observed results. Parang dito po is mag-base tayo kung ano magiging difference ng observed at expected na resulta po.
Good day everyone. Welcome to our presentation of Week 17. Today, we will be discussing presentation, analysis, and interpretation of data. Data analysis is the process of bringing order, structure, and meaning to the mass of collected data. It is a messy, ambiguous, time-consuming, creative, and fascinating process. It does not proceed in a linear fashion. It is not neat data analysis. It's a research for answers. But relationships among categories is data, according to Marshall and Rossman, 1990. So what is presentation, analysis, and interpretation? Presentation is the process of organizing data into logical, sequential, and meaningful categories. Classifications to make them amenable to study and interpretation. Analysis, on the other hand, is the process of breaking up the whole study into its constituent parts of categories according to the specific questions under the statement of the problem. And interpretation, it is often the most difficult to write because it is the least structured. We have 3 different ways of presenting data. First is textual. Statements with numerals or numbers that serve as supplements to tabular presentation. Next is tabular, a systematic arrangement of related idea in which classes of numerical facts or data are given each row and their subclasses are given each column in order to present the relationships of sets numerical facts or data. Next is graphical, a chart representing the quantitative variations of changes of variables. Pictorial or diagrammatic form. Next slide, please.
Types of graphs and charts. Bar graph. Bar graph is a chart or graph that represents categorical data with rectangular bars with heights or lengths proportional to the values that they represented. Linear graph. A line graph which is a whole unbroken line. Ito po yung line na it's either paangat o baba ang ratings po ng data nyo. Pie graph. A pie chart is a circular statistics graphic which is divided into slices to illustrate numerical proportion. In a pie chart, The arc length of each slice is proportional to the quantity it represents or dinidivide po nito ang mga data depends po sa taas ng resulta. Pictograms. A pictogram, also called pictograph or simply picto, and in computer uses an icon, is a graphic symbol that conveys its meaning through its pictorial resemblance to a physical object. Ito po yung mga sign na nakikita natin tulad po ng no smoking or yung mga sign na sa tawidan po yung tinatawag na pictograms. Statistical map are used to show the difference in values between the different geographical regions in geospatial analysis. Modern statistical graphics include use satellite images and street level. Ito po gumagamit ng bansa para malaman ang percentage ng isang bagay po. Ratio charts. A chart employing the Cartesian coordinate system in which the points on a curve are determined by measuring time as the independent variable along the axis and the logarithms of the value of corresponding dependent variables along the other. Example po nito ay ang earthquake. Dito po natin malaman kung gaano kalakas ang impact ng lindol sa isang lugar.
The next is general guidelines in reporting and writing data analysis and interpretation. Number 1. An introductory paragraph is provided at the start of the chapter. Number 2. Subtitles of section are based on the question in the statement of the problem state in declarative form single space bold. Number 3. Table and figure numbers and titles are written in capital lowercase and at the center and single space. Number 4. Table and figure shall be in continuous numbering. It shall be presented first before the discussion. Number 5. Discussion should follow the format. Presentation of the table itself, analysis and interpretation, then amplification. The next is keyword used in analyzing and interpreting data. Number 1. Table blank present the blah blah blah. Number 2. The table blank indicate the. Number 3. As reflected in the table, there was. Number 4. As observed, there was indeed. Number 5. Delving deeper into that figure. Number 6. The illustrative graph above / below shows that. Number 7. In the explaining this result, it can be stated that. Number 8. Is it found the determinant of. Number 9. Has significant relationship with. Number 10. Is this discovered to be a factor of. Number 11. In relation with the result of blank, it may be constructed that. Number 12. And it viewing in this sense, it can be stated that. Number 13. The result established the fact that. Number 14. This finding suggests that. Number 15. With this result, the researcher developed an impression that. Next, please.
This is examples of presentation analysis and interpretation of data. This chapter presents, analyzes, and interprets the data used in the study to determine the employment status of PUPT graduate 2011 to 2015. This table shows the frequency distribution of the respondents' gender. It illustrates that there are more females responded, which are 82 or 75.23%, than male, which are 27 or 24.77%. Note: the interpretation of data should always be written below the table with the same level as the table title. The interpretation and the table should not be written on a separate sheet.
Good day, everyone. Today we will discuss about the summary, recommendation, and conclusion. First, let us talk about what is a conclusion. The conclusion should clarify concepts defined within the scope of the study. Moreover, it should explain the relationship of the variables under the study. Most importantly, it should answer all questions raised by the researchers. Ethically, the researcher should not give the true findings of the study. The researchers are not supported to fabricate the results of the study to favor the desired conclusion. And the researchers should prove or disprove the relationship between variables based on the findings of the study, according to Casella and Cuevas in 2010. Next is the summary findings. Let's talk about the general guidelines in writing the summary findings. Subtitles of the summary findings should follow the statement of the problem. There should be a brief statement about the main purpose of the study, the population, or respondents. The findings should be textual generalizations, that is a summary of the important data consisting of text and numbers. Every statement of fact should consist of words, numbers, or statistical measures woven into a meaningful statement. No deductions, nor inference, nor interpretation should be made, otherwise it will only be duplicated in the conclusion. That's all. Exporter, please.
Guidelines in writing the conclusion. 1. Conclusion shall be logically right in presenting the valid output of the pitch. 2. Conclusion should appropriately answer the specific question raised at the beginning of the investigation in the order by our given under the statement of the problem. 3. Conclusion shall point out what were factually learned from the inquiry. 4. Conclusion shall be formulated concise, that is brief and short, yet the study as required by the specific question. 5. Without any strong evidence to the contrary, conclusion shall be stated categorically. 6. Conclusion shall refer only the population, area, or subject of the study. 7. Conclusion shall not be repetition of any statement anywhere in the research paper. Thank you.
References. At the end of any research work, a page must be provided to list down the references used during the research writing. The research need to acknowledge all the sources with their complete and correct information and format. Dito po nilalagay lahat ng mga kinuha nyong source sa Google, and a reference list is arranged alphabetically by author. Pero if yung item po is walang author, it is cited by the title po. References. These include a complete list of all quoted and paraphrased works that the researchers actually use in completing the study. Ito po yung nakikita natin sa end of the paperwork na kung saan ito po yung nakalakap nating mga information about sa research galing sa pinagkuhanan natin like Google Scholars, ganun po.
Presenting the written research report. The final report is a document that ultimately represents the research. This report is the record of the research, content, process, and analyzed as reported by the researcher. It also serves as a scientific contribution a researcher makes about what is known about the social world. It can also act as a catalyst for the further research. The following considerations are important in presenting the written research report according to Harvey. While the content will always be essentially the same for each audience, the emphasis on specific points and the way in which they are expressed will be different depending on the target audience. This report need not to be substantially different from drafts, except where participants have indicated the change is necessary. It should begin with the restatement of the beginning of the research project and end with the summary section. The summary section provides a description and explanation of the new knowledge discovered on the unique contribution that this research makes. Not too much details is needed here. Simple answer the research question and draw the conclusion.